To explain how animation works in Flash, I'm going to be using two terms, keyframes and tweening. These two terms originate from the early days of cartoon animation, where an artist, when they wanted to create an animation, would draw two pictures. One picture was the object or character or person or whatever at the beginning of the animation, and the other picture was the same thing at the end of the animation. So in this animation we have a box that moves from left to right. The junior artists would then draw all of the frames in between. And as I mentioned earlier, the timeline in Flash works in a linear fashion from left to right, so we have a graphical representation of the two keyframes and all the frames in between. The good thing about Flash is that it automatically creates all of the frames in between, and this is known as tweening. We apply tweening to the first keyframe, not the second one, just the first one, because animation happens from left to right, and it will automatically create all of the intermediate frames for you. Once this is done, Flash lets us know by creating an arrow that extends from the first keyframe to the second keyframe, and it also tints the frames. These are a light blue tint. They can also be light green, and you'll see why in the upcoming lessons. We have an animation here. Let's back up a couple of steps and have a look at how this is created. I'm going to delete a bunch of frames, and we'll start back at the beginning. Imagine the artist. The artist has drawn the first keyframe and now wants to draw the second one. In Flash, all we have to do is select the ending frame, say we want to finish this at frame 50, and then do one of a few things. We can either choose Insert, Timeline, and Keyframe, or we can right-click, that's on a PC, or Control-click on a Macintosh, and choose Insert Keyframe here. Or we can simply hit the F6 key. A keyframe is automatically created. Now when we do this, Flash automatically takes a copy of the first keyframe. And that's not very helpful because it's exactly the same. So all we have to do is select the object and move it. I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard for this. So now we have the object at the beginning and the object at the end. All we have to do now is add tweening. And we add tweening to the start keyframe. To do this, on a PC you can right-click, on a Macintosh, Control-click, and choose Create Motion Tween. There's our animation. I'll back up a step. And you can also choose Insert, Timeline, and Create Motion Tween here. Back up once again. You can also use the Properties Inspector, and there's a drop-down box here labeled Tween. Choose that and select Motion. There's our arrow. The frames are tinted, and we have our animation. So hopefully now you can see how easy simple animation is. We're not limited to just motion. As I mentioned earlier in the course, when we use symbols and instances, we can also change the color. Let's tint this and make it red. And the animation happens to the color as well. Or we can rotate this. And it will rotate at the same time. Now to finish up with this lesson, you may have noticed when I selected the first keyframe and chose the Tween drop-down box, there's another entry. This is Shape. And these are the two types of tweening that I mentioned in the first lesson in this section of the course. We're going to start looking at the differences between these two types of tweening in the next lesson.